What is up, YouTube? Welcome back in another YouTube live show here tonight. I am back after my brief foray back into the legitimate broadcasting world this weekend, doing the Big 12 Indoor Track and Field Championship broadcast in Ames, Iowa. And I do want to talk a little Ames here, all right? You know, I've had my battles with Iowa State. I don't think Iowa State fans like me all that much, but everybody in Ames was very hospitable to your boy over this past weekend. So we'll talk some of that. We're going to talk our Briles, which has been the story of the day. We're also going to talk about a very interesting and thought-provoking theory that the Alliance maybe actually won in this past round of college football playoff negotiations. I'll give some credence at least to the idea that was laid out by a reporter and columnist from the LA Times. So we've got a lot of good things coming up today. I'm going to try and get out of here about 8 o'clock because we've got K-State and Texas Tech coming up in hoops. The matchup everybody's been dying to see that you know will be a great game, especially with K-State missing Marquise Noel, one of its best players tonight, it appears. Obviously, I'm saying that somewhat facetiously, but I would like to try and get out of here by around 8 o'clock. Wolf58, what's up, my man? Thank you for saying that it's good to see me. It is good to see you back here in the chat as well. Same to you, Ron. And Mark, is that the GOAT? Mark, call me the GOAT? Thank you, my friend. And I am the GOAT even with crappy audio. So that is one thing I want to talk about from the beginning here that I'm immensely frustrated with. I've heard all you guys complaining about the audio. I am now very annoyed with the audio. I bought the padding. Let me just grab some of this so I can prove to you guys. Everybody that's been sending me these links for the padding, right? Like, look, it's here. It's behind me. I've got like 10 of them set up, and it's not doing bleep. So I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to dive deep into what I'm gonna do to make this big apartment actually sound okay and not airy and spacey and unprofessional. I get it. I understand. I'm working on it. I'm trying. Joe, I appreciate you saying that it sounds good. I know it sounds passable, but I want it to sound like really good and professional, and it's just frankly not right now. So just putting that out there for everybody. But let's ignore that. Let's have some fun today. Let's talk some college football, maybe a little college hoops, depending on where the mood really strikes us. But I'll be honest, I'm a little out of touch with the hoops world because I was working all weekend and all day Saturday. I didn't get to see like any Big 12 basketball at all. In fact, I just watched a few of the highlights from K-State, Iowa State, and that is about it. Again, let me lay out the parameters here of what we're going to talk about today. I will discuss my trip to Ames. We are going to talk about the embarrassment that is our Briles and the embarrassment that was brought on, unfortunately, at HBCU with Hugh Jackson trying to hire him. And then, within a couple of days, he's run out, essentially, has already released a statement saying that he's out as Grambling State's offensive coordinator. That was a wild ride. And look, nobody should ever be hiring Art Briles ever again. That guy should not be allowed to run a college football program ever again. Any of that should just not happen. It was ridiculous that it did in the first place. And I tell you what, the tease of the video, the title of the video, it's about this theory about the Alliance and the SEC actually losing in this round of college football playoff negotiations. Written by Brady McCullough, who used to work at the Kansas City Star. He actually did a run-through on the Paul Feinbaum show to defend his take. And look, I will give him credit. Like, he made me think, and I think he does make some decent points, even if I do disagree with him in the end. So I want to give that some credence here. We also have some Big 12 college football playoff odds that have been released, 4 teams in the top 20 for the college football playoff odds that were put out there. I don't think it was 5-9. It was BetMGM. I think it was BetMGM that released these odds. So pretty legit. We also have a little salty Bob Bowlesby quote for you that I'm here for. I'm very much here for the salty, open about his feelings Bob Bowlesby, because that is really what we're getting these days. So that's kind of the rundown of what we have. College football attendance is also very low. It's at its lowest since the 1980s. I thought that was an interesting story. And I'm curious how many of you guys, are affected by that. How many of you guys are still attending games regularly, and if that has changed anything. But that's the basic rundown of what we're going to get into today. I would expect a fairly light crowd. We'll see what actually happens here. But, not a real football-heavy time of year right now. It's also a Monday as opposed to a Sunday. I know it's an awkward time, so that's probably throwing some people off. But yesterday was just too tough. I've got so much I know you guys don't want to hear it, but with the track broadcast on top of the regular job and just everything that's going on, it's been really tough to have the bandwidth to do this, but it's fun. I enjoy it. I want to be here for the community to allow you guys to talk some football. So let's do it. If you are here, one thing you can do that does not cost you a dime that will help support the channel and help support what I do. If you're a Big 12 fan and you want more Big 12 content, simply click that like button. That's it. Just click the like button. All you have to do doesn't cost you anything. Just hammer that like button, please. Also, if you do want to donate and you do want to make sure that your question or comment is seen by me and gets to the top of the chat, supersedes everything else, you can click the $ below the chat box where it says say something. That is all that it takes. It is supporting what I do. It is also making your voice heard better here on the channel if you do so. So I appreciate everybody that does, and I appreciate everybody that's here watching. You also, if you are watching this not live and you want to donate to the channel, you want to help out, the Venmo is just John, John Kurtz, Kurtz-4 on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. If you want to support the channel that way as well, and appreciate that that all you guys do that as well. So I went to Ames. I saw somebody here commenting about Ames. Roger says, John, ISU fans welcome you to Ames anytime. We love the Cats, nicest fans in the conference. Well, thank you for that, Roger. You must not be on Twitter, Roger. That would be my guess, and that's no personal attack at all. That's simply stating the fact that it's pretty testy on Twitter these days between K-State fans and Iowa State fans. So my guess is you're not a part of that crowd, which honestly is good. If you're not, you should just stay out of it. If I had a life to say, if you gave me a button and you said like, man, you can go back and you can either like, just not be a part of this Twitter thing at all or be where you're at right now. Look, it would be a much less stressful endeavor to just not be on at all. But unfortunately, here we are. And I remember being in a class at K-State in 2009 called like internet reporting or something like that, internet journalism. And they forced us to sign up for Twitter for the presidential inauguration to like live tweet the inauguration. And I thought it was stupid. I remember being mad that they were making me do this. I didn't want it. I didn't use it for a while. And now look at me. I can't get off the damn thing. So here we are. But yes, I was in Ames for the Big 12 Indoor Track and Field Championships. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. I actually enjoy doing play-by-play of track and field. I've done it twice now. Have a great partner to do it with, and Johanna Gretschel, who's awesome. And we had a really good crew. Justin Nusser helped us out as well. So shout out to all those guys. And Ames was a lot of fun. I've been to Ames many a time before for football games in my 10 years doing pregame radio for K-State football and traveling with the team. I've been to Ames like 5-6 times, but never really had a chance to actually go out and explore much. It seemed like it was typically an 11 a.m. kick, and we're in and out pretty fast. I actually had a chance to do so. I went to the cafe, which was excellent for breakfast. I went to there was another place called Cafe Baudelaire or something like that. Baudelaire. I'm sure I'm botching the pronunciation big time, but that was awesome. We actually went there twice. Really good Greek food. Ate it twice. So nice. I ate it twice. I was impressed with the array of dining options that Ames actually had relative to Manhattan. Look, Manhattan, I mean, it's like you want burgers or tacos. That's about it. Love a lot of the Manhattan eateries, but we need a little more variety. And Ames actually had us beat there. People were very nice. No issues at all. I did not have to worry about anybody coming up and telling me I sucked because of my opinions on Twitter. I had not a single soul. You guys won't believe this. Not a single soul came up to me and said, hey, man, Iowa State is a better job than TCU and you're an idiot. Nobody said that, even though, obviously way higher ceiling at TCU was a much better job. But I digress. Nobody came and told me that in Ames, so that was great. Worked out well. I appreciate you guys asking about that and those that followed along there. Robert in with the donation. I appreciate it, Robert. Robert says, no offense, John. Go Tech. Beat the Cats. Go 18-0 at home. Yes, Texas Tech and K-State are about to play in hoops here at 8 o'clock. And, I mean, look, Robert, I have no disillusions of K-State actually winning this game tonight. K-State is kind of tanking here at the end of the year when they had a chance to get into the tournament. They're also going to be without Marquise Noel as one of their leading scorers and best players in the backcourt. It's senior night for Texas Tech. Like everything is adding up tonight to a Tech whitewashing. So I have no smack to talk at all. In fact, this is a game like I'm bummed I'm missing. I am bummed that I'm not able to go to this game, and I probably wouldn't have gone to it even if I was still working the old radio job covering K-State, just because the team is not high profile enough this year and it's far enough away, but I've been texting back and forth with my buddy Derek and Grant, who work for K-State Online, that they went to the game and they've been talking about the atmosphere and the students waiting outside and just like how fun it is. And I would love to experience a game at Texas Tech. I've never experienced a basketball game there. I've been to plenty of football games, never a basketball game. I would love to see that atmosphere right now with like how hype things are around Tech hoops. Would absolutely love it. So hopefully I'll get a chance to at some point, but I am not going to today, unfortunately. I will be watching from right over there, which is my couch. 69 Chevy Savell. 69 Chevy Chevelle. I appreciate the donation. We need a Farmageddon trophy. Yeah, some people have come up with some good iterations of that. I've seen some fun ones before, but nothing that seems to be like perfect. I'm just like, all right, that's it. That's what we need for the Farmageddon trophy. We're going to have to work on that. We need to, 69 Chevelle, if you could, whether you're going to outsource it or what, work on it yourself. If you could just take care of that, get on top of that, that would be awesome. Bring me some ideas. We'll workshop this. I'm not the designer, but I can tell you whether it's good or bad, right? I have a Twitter account. I can tell you whether or not something sucks or doesn't suck. Kidding there, obviously. But hey, I'm always here for suggestions. And would take a look at any Farmageddon propaganda or trophy that you have to offer. Joe, thank you for the donation. Very, very kind donation, Joe. Much appreciate that, man. Joe says, enjoy the live talks, John, with all the Big 12 schools in the conversation. Your opinion counts with me. Now, that was very nice of you, Joe. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for being here. My opinion should matter. Damn it. No, I mean, look, probably doesn't matter quite as much as it did when I used to actually be working in the trenches every single day in the conference. But I appreciate that you guys enjoy it. I appreciate that you guys do value my opinion and give me a platform here. So thank you for that. Really do appreciate it. Before we get into it, I saw Wolf58. I saw that you commented a little bit about the Alliance. I'll be interested, Wolf58, to see where you're going to land on this. If you have not seen the story already from Brady McCullough, after I read you some of the details, where you're going to land on that. I do want to first, just because it's been like I don't think it's worthy enough of like a full show or like being the main topic of a live show, the Art Briles situation, because one, it's just the thing's been litigated over and over again. I think everybody knows where they stand on Art Briles, which is generally most sane human beings that guy should not be allowed to work in college football anymore. Certainly around kids and on campuses where there are women running around after the way that he let his team and those dudes at Baylor there for a while just run around without consequence. And that's just not a fun show to do, right? And if it were something that were just now happening for the first time and that pertinent, like maybe then it's worth it. But right now, I don't think anybody really wants that, right, at this point in time. But I do think it's worth like mentioning because it's a former Big 12 coach, high profile name in Big 12 circles. I know like there's at least and I'm not Tech fans, you're not alone. Like there are a lot of fan bases that if they were regionally as close to the Briles thing as you were, like there would be a small faction of fans that would push for him. But I know Tech fans have always had to deal with like pushing back, and the masses, the majority, against like, no, we're not hiring our Briles. But every time the Tech job has been open since Briles left Baylor, like you see it come up a little bit. Point being, it's relevant around here that his name came back up. So what happened is Hugh Jackson, who used to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, he gets hired at Grambling State, right, a historically black college, and hires an offensive coordinator who left already, like very quickly left for another job. And so he convinces Grambling State to allow them to hire Art Briles somehow. I saw the athletic director say it took him 10 full days to come around to the idea, but they did. And the news started to leak a couple of days ago. Of course, Twitter and the internet loses its mind. And like, look, you can say cancel culture all you want. And there are some instances where I think it does go too far. Art Briles, I don't think, is one of them. And it obviously turns into a big deal and a distraction. Briles had even sat down to do an interview, and I don't want to be one to like attack someone's appearance, but just like the long hair he had going on, just like scraggly appearance. It looked like Art Briles was like in the witness protection program or something so that you wouldn't notice him, which honestly is probably a good idea for somebody like him. And the way everything went down there at the end at Baylor and where he's been and what the public perception and opinion is of him. But I just thought the whole time, like, what? There's so many things with this. Like, what if you're Hugh Jackson? Like, man, why? Just why are you willing to take on that circus, which you knew it would be a circus. There is also the element of like Grambling State waited to announce it until like their students were off campus. Also, they did it right as the news was striking. Now, I don't know whether or not this was totally planned or intentional, but they announced it like right as everything's happening with Ukraine and Russia for the first time, and everybody's paying attention to that. I mean, you talk about like the good old 5 o'clock news dump, but to dump it in the midst of like the first war that we're seeing in real time on social media, it's a hell of a move, man. That's a gutsy move to do that. It was just also shrouded in what exactly they knew it was going to be. So like if you're Hugh Jackson, like, man, look, you say what you will about him with the Browns, but that's a guy that's been a head coach in the NFL. You're at an HBCU. You're at the college level. You shouldn't need to resort to hiring Art Briles to jumpstart your program. I don't understand the idea behind it in the first place. Now it's failed. He's already been run out and apparently on his own volition resigned. Now, who knows how much of that behind closed doors is them saying like, hey man, you got to get out. But he did resign already within like 48 hours of this news first leaking. I just don't understand why you want to take that on. And that's setting aside like the morality aspect of it. That is just taking into account like the fact that, even if you think that this guy is like vindicated and changed and all that, even if you think that, you had to know this circus, it just wasn't going to work. I don't know if they thought maybe they were at a low profile enough place that it wouldn't, but I mean, anywhere Art Briles has tried to get a job, which this is now really like the third time. It was Southern Miss and then somewhere in the CFL. He's just been run out of town before it actually gets going. I mean, the temperature is not changing on this. Like the guy, and I see the comment from OSUX, Art Briles, let him alone, judge not, lest you not be judged. Wow, boy, he called me judgmental Christian POS. Boy, that's strong. I didn't even realize how strong that was getting because I was reading along there. Well, first of all, making a lot of assumptions about me there, my friend. It's not that, but I mean, like, there's two things with the Briles situation here. One, I mean, the crimes committed were heinous, and he totally looked the other way. Like, let's start there. I think this is Stats of War, one of my favorite follows for college football on Twitter. You should definitely follow him. Quote, it puts this quote out there that was from Briles that said, quote, "These are some bad dudes. Why was she around those guys?" That was Art Briles' reaction to his players like raping women on campus. Those are bad dudes. Why was she around those guys? I mean, I don't think I need to explain to you how disgusting of a quote that is from Briles. And that was the general attitude. And you can go read up on all the transgressions and everything that happened there. It was terrible. But the second part of it is, and like the part that is just, that I really, when people and Hugh Jackson put out a statement basically trying to push this, like second chances, like, okay, I'm actually in a lot of situations for second chances. Now, when it regards allowing sexual assault to happen on a college campus, it's a hell of a debate to be having on whether or not a second chance should actually be allowed. But to even get to that debate, you need to show some contrition. You need to show that you're apologetic. You need to show that you feel bad for what happened. And like Art Briles has never had that attitude with a serious tone. There's never been like serious contrition from Briles about what happened there. And until that were it just nothing genuine, no genuine apology, nada. He kind of clings to this whole, like, I'm still innocent, it's okay, or at least like it wasn't that bad. I mean, I saw the AD at Grambling State said, look, this is a guy that just wants to coach football. He said sympathetic and empathetic. I have never publicly seen that from Art Briles since this happened at all. So like, dude, if you want a second chance for something that bad, you better be pretty damn empathetic and sympathetic publicly, and you better do it fast. And that just never happened with Briles. So like, I'm sorry, I'm just not inclined to give the guy a second chance at all. Really, I'm not. I mean, especially at the college level. Like if we're talking about professional football and you're at least like not on a college campus and maybe like a position coach in the NFL, like again, levels to this, different parts of the discussion and the argument. But dude, to have him be the offensive coordinator on a college campus, no, like that can't happen. And by the way, I mean, let me just take this grenade, lob it out there. Jeff Levy, Oklahoma's offensive coordinator, he had a little hand in all this, right? He was at Baylor as all this was happening. And now that's the guy that Sooner fans are parading around here. Okay. So, all right, there's the grenade. Let me just run away from it. Anyway, I think that can probably put a pin in the Briles discussion for now, but it was a ridiculous idea. I don't understand why that risk was taken. Briles, to me, is not somebody that deserves a second chance in this realm. I don't think that a reasonable human being could actually come to that conclusion. I see Joe says he should have stayed over in Europe. It was never going to happen for him to coach in the U.S. I mean, yeah, like that's what I would do. I would keep the witness protection outfit, the witness protection haircut, and everything that's going on. If you truly don't feel like you did anything wrong or whatever, you have to understand the temperature of what's going on. You just go overseas, try to grow the game there, whatever it is that you can to get a football job there, and just go the hell away. I mean, like I have no use for Briles. I don't want to see that dude ever again. None of this is a question about his actual ability. None of this is a question about his ability as a football coach. I think we all understand that, but it's unfortunately about something much. Let's talk Alliance here, okay? So this story really piqued my interest and got my attention for a number of reasons. One, you guys know, like I guess it's fair to say we're pretty anti-Alliance around here, or at least very annoyed by the Alliance. I wasn't so much like anti-Alliance when it started, but when it totally torpedoed the college football playoff expansion, then yeah, all right, now I'm going to be anti-Alliance. But I'm also somebody that will try, even though, you know, some of you may not believe me on this or think that this is accurate, but I try to at least allow for some dissenting opinion, to bring some of that to the table, to just challenge your own opinions. One, because it's interesting. It can make for interesting content. And two, because I think like that you shouldn't live in just a total echo chamber, even though all of us, I think to an extent do, no matter how hard we try. But Brady McCullough, Brady McCullough, or does he go by J. Brady McCullough now? I can't remember. Anyway, I respect the hell out of him. He used to write for the Kansas City Star, obviously my local paper growing up. Now he works at the LA Times and covers college football out there. And he wrote a piece basically saying like, hey, the Pac-12 is being unfairly vilified again in all of this, with playoff expansion dying, that everybody is crapping on the Pac-12, that, you know, they'll never get anybody in now. And he's saying that the real biggest loser was actually the SEC. And that in essence, the Alliance did kind of win this round over the SEC because of how it all worked out. And I know that idea sounds kind of ridiculous on paper. When you first hear it, that idea sounds kind of ridiculous. Like, what? How could you possibly be saying that the SEC actually lost in this deal when they are the one conference that is going to be just fine in a 14 playoff? They have all the leverage, yada, yada, yada. But when I look, one, the LA Times, like that's somebody I'm going to at least give somewhat of a listen to. Like that's a pretty respected outlet that he's working for there. And I know him and I've read his work for a long time. So that also piqued my interest. Then I heard that he went on Feinbaum to defend his position. And I thought, well, I mean, that takes some guts. Like that takes some gumption and certainly some belief in what it is that you're saying. So all of these things like triggered in me. All right, let's hear this out. Let's listen to this. So here is the idea. Here is the, I'm just going to read you some of the story here that was put out by Brady McCullough. He says, in reference to the Pac-12, some of the criticism is fair, some of it isn't. But before we get stuck in the same old pattern of picking on the Pac-12, how about we pose a different question? What if the biggest loser in the failure to expand the playoff was the conference with the most to gain, the one that was pulling the strings harder than any other the last 2 years to push the number to 12, which obviously is the SEC? He says, the point I'm about to make is that agreeing to it today, given how the process played out the last 6 months, would have only increased the SEC's position of dominance over the rest of the Power Five, even the cash flush Big Ten. He goes on to say, from the moment that it happened, I believe the Longhorns and Sooners have been convinced by Sankey that a 12-team playoff was coming, opening up the potential that nearly half the field would come from the stacked SEC. Sure, UT and OU would love the windfall of revenue from the SEC's annual distribution, but Oklahoma basically saying wouldn't leave their cushy path to the playoff if they didn't think a 12-team playoff was coming. Goes on to say, you can bet Cleve Cobb's conversations with his presidents and chancellors are going much better than Sankey's, particularly in Norman, Oklahoma, and Austin, Texas. The Sooners and Longhorns could be staring at an even more perilous climb back to the national championship game, which makes me curious how Sankey's posturing that the SEC would be fine staying at 4 teams in the playoff is going over. Okay, so that's actually like reasonably compelling. I understand what he is saying there, and basically the Texas and Oklahoma part, it's like, I can't sit here on this channel and say that that's ridiculous, because one of the questions that I posed in the aftermath of the playoff expansion being totally shut down until 2026 was, does this affect the timeline of Texas and Oklahoma leaving the league? Because there would be less impetus, you would think, for them to go jump to the SEC if it is going to be harder. If you're going to the SEC right now, okay, now you're talking about the 16 team Super Bowl. You're talking about Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Florida competing with all these teams. And then, there's one, maybe two playoff spots available every single year. And you're having to compete with all of them for that little real estate. Whereas if you're going into it and saying it's a 12-team playoff, well, you could just fart your way to a 9-3 season and be in the playoff because you have that SEC logo on your chest, right? That's a totally different scenario. So would you not just wait until the playoff you would think would be expanded in 2026, although that's going to have to be negotiated too. But would you not just wait basically as long as you can to jump and leave from the Big 12 now because of that, because you kind of lost that extra carrot there? I thought that was a legitimate question. So like that actually does factor in here. And I think that lends some validity to the point. But I think this really, the point that he's making is more like a Texas and Oklahoma thing and not like an SEC thing and health of the SEC. So like, could it make the actual conversation more difficult between him and Texas and Oklahoma, like the president's there? Yes, that could make it more difficult to have those conversations with them right now. But ultimately, like, what is Sankey really losing with that? I mean, he's already got the biggest, baddest thing in town. Texas and Oklahoma are just like sprinkles on top, right? Sprinkles on top of the sundae. He's already got the sundae. He's going to be okay, basically, no matter what happens. They have so much leverage and are in such a position of power that I just don't foresee Texas and Oklahoma being upset, really being that big of a deal. I mean, who cares if you're Greg Sankey? Like, sure, it's awesome if they're happy, but if not, you're still the SEC. You still have Alabama and LSU and Georgia and all these other teams. I just don't think that's that big of a deal. So to me, it's like the column should be biggest losers in all of this potentially are Texas and Oklahoma. And he makes the point that, like, look, Sankey was behind closed doors trying to pull off this coup to get Texas and Oklahoma there. And if not for Texas A&M tipping off the Houston Chronicle, it would have happened and we would have gotten agreement on expansion for the playoff before we knew about Texas and Oklahoma going. And then this whole plan, this diabolical plan, would have worked out totally fine if it weren't for you meddling kids, that whole thing. Stopping it, then they would have gotten what they wanted. And I understand, like, that would have been an ideal scenario for the SEC, but I just don't know how much it matters that it didn't work. And it seems to me that the point that's being made here is like the losers are Oklahoma and Texas in all of this, because they may either have to wait longer to go to the SEC or go to the SEC earlier and have the path be tougher. Or maybe the SEC comes back to the bargaining table and does not want to do a 12-team playoff. They do not want to expand it. They do not want to make the concessions that they already were making. And now, Oklahoma and Texas have to deal with like an SEC invitational or something, whatever that is going to be in 3 or 4 years down the road. So that would just be my reaction to it. I would also give Brady McCullough credit for this and say that I think if we're talking about the Pac-12, it's fair to say the Pac-12, like they don't deserve to be like number one on the chopping block here. I think it's the ACC, because clearly Kliavkoff had basically said, like, I'm willing to do whatever we're going to do. I'll fall in line with the alliance. If we're going to expand, we're going to expand. It seemed like he was willing to do whatever. Now, he wound up voting no on it, but that's because everybody else in his alliance was also voting no. So you might as well just make it a unanimous vote. You don't want to be with the least power in that group, the dissenter, to rise up and vote against the interests of the other two and get kicked out of the alliance. Like, he kind of just did what he had to. So if the take here is don't crap on the Pac-12, they didn't really do this, it was the ACC, I agree. If the take is Texas and Oklahoma are bigger losers than the Pac-12 here, potentially I could agree. Like, I could understand and get on board with that. If the take is the SEC as a whole is a loser here, no, I don't agree with that, because I still think in the end, like, the SEC, one, is going to be fine no matter what. And even if you're saying, hey, a 12-team playoff, you could wind up with 6 teams in the field being from the SEC, wouldn't that increase their dominance? I would disagree, because then you're at least going to have a representative from the other conferences. And as of right now, if it stays at a 14 playoff, you just won't. You may not have a team from the Pac-12. You may not have a team from the ACC. Hell, this year, a team from the AAC got in and took one of those spots, right? So, you don't even have a chance. Like, I think about the NBA draft lottery. You put all the balls in a hopper, right? The Pac-12, as of right now, the ACC, as of right now, like, they don't even have a ball in the hopper. It's impossible to win. If you took the balls and put more SEC balls in there, but you also had a couple of ping pong balls from the Pac-12 and the ACC, well, now you at least have a chance, right? Your odds have increased. That's the way I view it. Like, you're taking yourself out of having any sort of chance. And the odds that the SEC is going to want to come back to the negotiating table, still making some concessions if and when that does happen here in a couple of years, I think they're obviously diminished. I mean, Sankey definitely seems annoyed that he felt like for the greater good of the game, he was making some concessions here to allow the playoff to expand. And it didn't happen because these dimwits, like Jim Phillips, decided to tank it for whatever their reasons. He may not want to do that when he comes back. Now, another point that I've heard McCullough make is he said, look, like, I think this is when he was pushed by Feinbaum on, like, well, the SEC can just take their ball and go play their own invitational and not worry about the rest of the college football world and what happens then. And McCullough's point was, well, the SEC loves to tout like their power here, and their power is less meaningful if they're not playing the other leagues, if they're not dominating everybody else in the end for a championship. And I get that. That is true. They lose some value in that if it's literally just them playing each other and they're never going out and playing everybody else or never, like, winning a quote-unquote national championship in the playoff. But even if they did that, again, who wins? Who will be stronger? Who will have a more viable product? It will be the SEC. Then potentially it becomes easier to pick off other schools. They will still have plenty of interested eyeballs on their games. They will still be getting the recruits because who's going to care? What will you care more about? Like, going to a school where you can win the SEC Invitational or going to a school where you can win the Alliance Invitational? It would still be the SEC. They would still have more power. I just think no matter what you do, no matter how you want to slice this pie, no matter how you want to shake it up, no matter how much you want to blame ESPN, which I partially would for artificially propping up this league for a long time and helping them get to where they're at right now, they are a behemoth. They do have all the leverage. What I think everybody needed to do in this situation was swallow their pride and just take some of the concessions that were actually made by the SEC and hope that getting at least one of your teams in every single year can help build brands, build momentum, and disperse some of the talent that right now is so highly concentrated up at the top, because kids want to play for a national championship. And if they see that they can go to your school in the Pac-12 and actually at least have a puncher's chance at it, as opposed to no chance, then theoretically you would have a better chance to recruit and over time shake some of that out. Maybe Nick Saban retires here in a few years and you can start to slowly chip away at that. But as it stands right now, you're not going to. As it stands right now, it's going to take some time to even begin that process because the playoff is going to stay here the way that it is right now. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I thought it was very interesting. I think it's a thought-provoking take. I think it was a very worthy take. I disagree with it in some regards, but it's very interesting pushback, and I think it's good pushback. And to not live totally in an echo chamber, I think it's valuable to listen to. Joe, we'll see you later. I see Joe says 8:03 tip, John. Enjoyed it. Wreck 'em. He's off to watch Texas Tech and K-State. I'm going to give you about 7 more minutes here. I'll get to the 40-minute mark, and then exit. A reminder, once again, first of all, like the video, please. If you are in here, that helps me out. It's a free thing you can do to help the channel if you just like the video. Also, if you do want to get in a donation to get your topic or question or comment up to the top of the chat and get my attention, click the $ below the chat box where it says say something, and you can do that. Supports what it is that I'm doing here, helps you get more Big 12 content, and I will see what it is that you say. Now, having said that, I'm seeing a couple people saying, hey, let's talk about what happened in the Big 12 Saturday in basketball. I said this at the top of the show, and I'll just reiterate it here. I immensely apologize. I was doing the Big 12 track and field championships all weekend, Thursday through Saturday in Ames, where it was just work pretty much all day outside of the couple hours I had on Friday to go out and explore Ames a little bit. I don't have that much to say about it because I didn't get to see much. Right? I mean, look, the Big 12 race is much more interesting now that Baylor took down Kansas. I was pretty shocked that Texas Tech lost to TCU. We had some great games. I mean, K-State, Iowa State did go down to the wire as well. I know Iowa State fans I've seen pushing today for Brockington to be a player of the year candidate legitimately in the Big 12. I think obviously that's going to go to Ochai Agbaji. I mean, I know vaguely some of the storylines that are going on here, but one, have not followed the Big 12 basketball season nearly as close as I have football anyway. And two, just didn't get a chance to watch a whole heck of a lot of it on Saturday. So I do apologize, and I want to be open. I'm open and honest with you guys. I try to always be very open and honest with you guys, and transparent and not lie and fake my way through things. So that's kind of where I'm at. Big 12 tournament should be very, very interesting. It's going to take place about 3 blocks from where I live, and where I'm sitting right now. That's going to be awesome. And I will sprinkle some of that in, but generally I'm just, I see somebody in the comments, Sooner Fan 918, which, of course, an Oklahoma fan sitting here saying this, but Sooner Fan 918, no one cares about basketball. Football is king. I'm not trying to totally dismiss basketball, like totally dismiss basketball. But for the most part, football is going to control the conversation here, I think, for a variety of reasons. So it was a wild day Saturday. I wish that's one of those days that I will admit that I was sitting there a little bit, legitimately regretful. I was glad that I did the broadcast, that I did. But I was sitting there like, man, that would have been a great day of hoops. That would have been a great day to sit there and watch Big 12 basketball all day, to see how that was playing out. I'll share this opinion. I think this has been one of those years where the perception of the league, remember back in January, it was like, man, this league is crazy. Like all 10 teams should make the tournament. And generally, I feel like we go through this at least once every other year in the Big 12 where we start saying that, like, man, this league is so good. Everybody can make the tournament. Bill Self, who has to kind of be the spokesperson for everybody in the league because he's always, top of the heap. Baylor notwithstanding, obviously, no offense to Baylor there, but generally that's going to be the case. He has to be the one that's always sticking up for the league and advocating for it publicly and saying how many great teams there are in the league and that everybody should make the tournament. And he was doing that whole press tour again this year. And now here we sit and it's like, all right, the Big 12 is probably going to get 6 in. The cream has started to rise to the top, and some of that has died down. Like some of that talk of just how good the league was, like this crazy, ridiculous league, it's died down some here by the end. And that's typically how it works. So I've not been overly surprised to see that. I still think the Big 12 is a very strong league. Obviously it is, and it's going to get better with the teams that are coming in here in a couple of years. But it was slightly overhyped, which we have a tendency to do, I feel like, in Big 12 basketball land. Mainly fueled by the coaches. Like it always feels like the coaches are the ones, because it serves them to do that. But the coaches are the ones that really, really try to get out ahead of that narrative and like super hardcore push just how strong the league is, man. And they love to push it and love to say it because no matter what, one, they're propping up their peers. Two, they're propping up their league. They're increasing their chances of making the tournament. But it feels like Big 12 coaches do it more than coaches in other leagues. So there's a little basketball for you. What else did I have on the list here? I got to the 2 main things I wanted to get to. Oh, let me give you your Big 12 odds to make the college football playoff in 2022. These coming courtesy of BetMGM. You have 4 teams in the top 20 from the Big 12. Oklahoma at number 5, checking in at 35-1 odds. Texas at number 9. I can't even say it without laughing. Texas at number 9 at 50-1 odds. Baylor at number 17, 80-1 odds. Oklahoma State at number 19, 100-1 odds. So a couple observations here. I mean, first of all, just will we ever learn about Texas? This is a little bit different because Vegas, like, look, they need to make money. They're doing this based on like trying to make money. It's not a prediction business here. Texas is always going to be a hot topic, like your casual fan. A lot of Texas casual fans, I'm sure, that make their way to Vegas, like would love to put some money down on the horns. I understand why Texas becomes more of a draw here, but like if we're legitimately saying that they're going to be the number 9 team in the country next year, I mean, and it just draws an eye roll from me because it's like, okay, well, we're going to have to sit here and deal with the hype train rolling through once again for Texas the entire offseason, right? Like we'll just have to deal with the Texas hype train that's always out of control and bloated and all of those things. Very, very annoying. Also, but Oklahoma fans, you finally have a believer. Vegas seems to be the believer that you're in there tied for 5th. There were a couple other teams at 35-1, but you're in the top 10. Oklahoma's in the top 10 in terms of odds to make it to the playoff next year. So All these Stuart Mandels out there that are saying drop you from the top 25, Oklahoma fans. You go to Vegas. You go to Vegas and you let them know. You let them know how much you love their love for your Sooners, because Vegas is all over this, man. They're on top of it. Also interesting that Baylor slightly better odds than Oklahoma State there to make the playoff. I guess probably more so based on like the 6 inches that they had on Oklahoma State this past year, right? That to me makes the most sense there. And I think it's also probably fair, as consistent as Oklahoma State has been. And you guys know how much respect I have for Gundy and that program and the consistency. But as consistent as they have been, Baylor's been the team that has the higher ceiling here over the last 10 to 15 years. They also have a much lower floor, but they have a much higher ceiling over the last 10 to 15 years, because we have seen them win multiple BCS bowl games, put together the 12-win season this past year. I know Oklahoma State did that as well, but they won the Big 12 championship. Baylor has done this multiple times under multiple coaches here throughout the last decade, whereas Oklahoma State seems to peak at this last year, notwithstanding like a 9 or a 10-win season. There have been some higher highs with Baylor. I don't think that's really arguable, that Baylor has proven to be able to do that and do that more recently. So Wolf 58, I see, but Texas has Quinn Ewers, the greatest college quarterback ever. Texas is back. Say what you will about Quinn Ewers. I've heard all of these things before. I go back to last year when I was hearing, well, they hired Pete Kwiatkowski, this 7-figure defensive coordinator, and that's what's going to do it. They finally are getting serious. We've heard it all. We've heard it all with Texas. They got Tom Herman, finally the hotshot coach. It makes all the sense in the world. Kind of like Chris Beard made all the sense in the world, right? You hire the local guy, and it doesn't always work. It just doesn't ever work out at Texas. How old were you back in 2009? I don't even remember 2009. Slightly exaggerating, but I don't even remember that. That's the last time Texas actually lived up to the hype and these expectations. So we're going to go through this same cycle again. We're going to go through this same damn cycle again. All right, I got to get to some Big 12 basketball. I'm going to go watch K-State, even though I figure that this is not going to end very well for my Wildcats tonight in Lubbock. So thank you for all you guys who tuned in. I'll try to be back at it at least one more time this week. Whether or not that's midweek or whether or not that's Sunday, I would say TBD, to be determined on that front. But I'm not deserting you guys. You'll still be getting content from me every week here throughout the doldrums of the football offseason. So again, like the video. If you are watching this taped, like you're not watching this live and you want to support the channel, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. You can do that. You can certainly donate that way as well to help out the channel, and I always appreciate it. Thank you guys for all the support. Tell your friends about it if you have Big 12 fan friends that would enjoy the content, and have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. I will talk to you soon.